Hi students, and welcome to today's live IELTS class. My name is Adrian and I am streaming to you live from rainy Budapest here on this summer day. I hope everybody is having a great weekend so far. Today we are looking at some key strategies to get those high bands on the IELTS exam. This is a members chat class. You do have to be a member to join the chat. Of course, everybody is welcome to watch. Hi, Elvina. There's our first member joining in. Materials come from our websites. These strategies are deeply explained in our premium package, aehelp.com, for the academic version of the exam. And for the general version, check us out at gieltshelp.com. That's for the general version. Hi, Hung. Hi, Rahul. Again, those websites, they look like this. This is the academic with the blue background. Click that big red button to join our premium course. And this is our general version of the website for the general module. Click that big red button to join. And we do cover all sections of the exam in videos, interactive lessons with 6 original practice exams. If you have questions about our products or the IELTS, send me an email, adrian@aehelp.com. Hi, Rahul. Hi, Vanity. How are you? Alvina, you had your writing part of the exam today. That's great. How did it go? Hi, Preeti. All right. So today we have this key strategies class, and then after this class in 90 minutes, we will have a part 3 speaking where everybody can join the chat. Hi, Casey. So today we will look at 3 key strategies for the IELTS exam. These are very, very important if you want to get a good score. Let's first discuss why they're important, and then we'll get a little bit deeper into each of them. So the 3 strategies that you have to focus on during your studies getting ready for the IELTS exam is paraphrasing, critical thinking, and visualization. So first, let's talk a little bit about paraphrasing. What is paraphrasing? So what does that actually mean? And I know this is a little bit of review for some of you, but we'll get deeper into each of these topics. So bear with me. Yeah, Alvina, the reading can definitely be challenging, and these strategies here are exceptionally important for the reading section. So hopefully you use them. If not, it's a good time to learn them. All right, so what is paraphrasing? Members, what does that actually mean? Now, when you have a new word like paraphrasing, let's say you don't know the meaning of that, you can break it into its components. So para means something, phrase means something else. Para is the prefix. It's called a prefix. Okay. Phrase is the root, and ing is the suffix. I'm going to teach you a few different tricks while I'm showing you how to understand and use these strategies. Okay. So Kesey says paraphrasing means the same idea but different expressions or different words. Yeah. Anybody know what the prefix para means? So what does the prefix para actually mean? So you're right, Kesey, and you're right, Hung. You're very close. You shouldn't retract that. Paraphrasing means to express the same idea using different words. Okay, that's what it means. What does the prefix para mean? Anybody know what para means? It's really, really good to study prefixes before your IELTS exam. Alvina thinks, does it mean two? When you're trying to figure out the meaning of a prefix like para, when you see that, think of other words that begin with para. What other words begin with para? Do you know any other words that begin with the prefix para? This is just for fun. I'm teaching you how to figure out the meaning of words while I'm teaching you paraphrasing here a little bit more deeply. So Ferdov says parallel. Yeah. Okay. It means two lines that are adjacent but do not touch. Yeah. What other words? Paradigm, paramedic, very good. Paramedic. Okay. Paramedic is a person who works in the ambulance, sometimes a doctor. Or medic, yeah. Parathyroid, Vanity Sean, very good. Paranoid, yeah, very good. How about parachute? Okay. A chute that is used to glide to the ground after jumping from a plane. Sure. So now the question, paradox, very good. So paranoia, there's a lot of words. So now the question is, what do all of these words have in common? So paramedic, parachute, paradox, parallel. What do these words actually have in common? Now remember this, members and students, that suffixes usually, or sorry, prefixes, okay, this is an important note here. Prefix is usually a preposition which indicates location, like in, above, under, together. Okay? So keep that in mind, that prefixes often refer to locations, okay? So the way you can figure out the meaning of a prefix is you think of a few words that have the same prefix, like para, and then you try to figure out what they have in common. Para is actually a little bit of a tricky one, but once I tell you, you'll figure it out. You'll be like, oh yeah, of course. That's why it's para. That's what para means. Okay? Anybody know what a paramedic has in common with a parachute? All right, I won't keep you in suspense any longer. Para actually means close to. Okay? So the prefix para means close to. Okay? So if you think about it, a paramedic is a medic who is close to the patient. They're in the ambulance, so they go to the patient, they're close to the patient. Parallel lines are two lines that are close to each other. A parachute is a chute that's close to the person jumping out of the plane, because of course if it's not, then you're not too worried about your next IELTS exam. You're more worried about the ground, okay? So the prefix para means close to. So in the word paraphrasing, it means a close to phrase. And the suffix usually gives the word form, whether it's a noun, a verb, an adjective. Okay? So Amrit, I'm so happy that now you get the idea of prefix, root, suffix. Understanding prefix, root, suffixes, students, is a very good piece of information when you're studying vocabulary and you're getting ready for the IELTS exam. Remember that it can help you to figure out the meaning of new words, okay? So you can get them from context and from thinking of other words, right? So this is just a little bonus hint here. So when learning for the IELTS, be sure to review prefix, root, suffix. Okay? This can help you figure out the meanings of words in context. All right? So the trick is to think of other words with the same prefix and guess what they have in common. All right? That's just a little bonus strategy as we get going here. Does that make sense, students? So paraphrasing, let's get back to it. So paraphrasing means to express the same idea using different words or words that are close to the meaning of the original words. Here's the better question. Why is paraphrasing important? So let's go to this next question here. Why is paraphrasing important? Okay, that's a really good question. Why should you study paraphrasing every day when you are getting ready for the IELTS exam? Paraphrasing, you should spend at least 20, 30 minutes on daily, focusing simply on paraphrasing. Okay, Ferdov says to understand information. Absolutely, Ferdovs. So if you simply repeat the same words that you hear or that you see, you might be just monkeying the words. You don't actually truly understand them, okay? So it helps you to understand words, sure, or understand information. Why else? There's actually quite a few reasons to paraphrase. Roshni says to be more creative, absolutely. To be more creative. To improve the emphasis of information. Okay? So if the house is on fire, you're going to start yelling at people saying, the house is burning, it's on fire, you have to get out, right? So you start paraphrasing the emergency of the situation to emphasize the information. And the IELTS exam uses this also. So key information is often paraphrased in the listening and reading sections. Sure. So emphasizing ideas, understanding information. And Alvina says to get more scores. Absolutely. Paraphrasing helps you get higher scores. And of course, as you know, IELTS uses paraphrasing in all parts of the exam to test your knowledge. Okay, so, and you know this, students, so when you're looking at the questions in the listening or the questions in the reading, then the IELTS exam uses paraphrasing to test your actual understanding, because it's not a matching game. You're not matching what you hear or what you read, but you're showing that you understand information. So when IELTS examiners create the exam, they're using special paraphrasing techniques to create this exam. Okay? How? How can you paraphrase? And this is the million-dollar question. So how can you paraphrase? There are a few different ways. So how can you paraphrase? Let's say the word big. What's another way to say big? Okay, and what I'm showing you here, the IELTS exam uses all of these. So using synonyms, absolutely. So synonyms is one way. So what's another way to say big? Let's do this instead. So big is the same as large. Yeah, absolutely, Amrit. Good. All right, so that's a simple way to paraphrase. What's another way to paraphrase? Hung says idioms and expressions. Yep, we'll get to that one in a moment, Hung. You're absolutely right. Another way is antonym plus negative. Okay, so stay. What's the opposite of stay? Grammar, Hung. Yep, Preeti, very good. Yep, grammar also. So let's focus on antonym negative. What's another way? Leave, right. Now, if I want to make it equal stay, then I have to say don't leave, right? So antonym plus negative means stay, don't leave, okay? That is, Hung, you're paraphrasing the word leave with don't stay. So antonym negative is another way to paraphrase. Stay is the same as saying to someone, don't leave. Right. And then some of you said there's also grammar. Absolutely. Grammar is used in the English language, as other languages, to paraphrase information. So I have seen Paris. What is another way to say that using different grammar? Okay. And again, going through these steps, understanding these, and practicing these daily will help you to get those good scores. So I have seen Paris. What's another way to say it? Can you give me a sentence that means the same as I have seen Paris using different grammar? So Amrit Bogan says, I went to Paris last summer. Alvina says, I used to be in Paris. That's pretty good, Alvina. For Dobbs, I have been to Paris is the same as what I just wrote. We use the present perfect, I have seen Paris, to emphasize experience. One of the reasons we use present perfect is for experience. So another way to say this is I have the experience of visiting and viewing Paris. And this is still in my memory. So to an English speaker, students, when you use the present perfect, I have seen Paris, beautifully in this short present perfect sentence, you're actually conveying, you're telling all this information here. I have the experience of visiting and viewing Paris, and this is still in my memory. It still persists. So believe it or not, this short four-letter present perfect sentence actually contains all of this information. That's why present perfect is very beautiful in the English language. A lot of people think it's just to make life more difficult. But in fact, when you're good at English and you can use present perfect well, then it's a very effective tool to express a deep, extensive idea in a very short way. Okay? So that's one way grammar is used. I'll give you another example of grammar. Paraphrasing, you can simply just switch the complex sentence around. You could say, although I like to eat apples, I don't like apple pie. I can just simply switch this around and say, I don't like apple pie, although I like to eat apples. So again, there's another example of grammar paraphrasing, simply switching the dependent and the independent clause. So being familiar with these, again, can help you to move through the IELTS exam quickly and efficiently. Okay? All right. So that's grammar, and then there's expressions as well. Absolutely. Let me give you an expression here. Expressions are commonly used in the IELTS exam. Expressions include idioms, phrasal verbs, okay, as well. So here is an example. Okay, let's say I ran into my friend at the mall. So here I'm using the phrasal verb or verb phrase, it's the same, run into. Here I said ran into. When you have phrasal verbs, so when you have the verb plus the preposition, that can usually be expressed as one verb, usually a more complex or higher level verb. Switching up phrasal verbs and their perfect verbs are a good way to increase your band scores in the writing and in the speaking. So if you use ran into in one sentence, you should use the exact verb for it in another sentence. Does anybody know what ran into means here? Which verb can replace ran into? Met is too simple for Dobbs. Ran is not. You will never have just the verb, so this is a different verb when it's one verb. I'll give you a hint. It starts with an E. It's got about 8 or 9 letters. Starts with an E, the perfect. Once I say it, I bet some of you know it. You'll be like, oh yeah, of course. Not experience, Hung. The second letter is an N. That's right, Alvina. Very good. You encounter. Now, of course, remember that the verb form is past tense. So I encountered my friend at the mall. To run into someone means that you meet them by accident. So for Dobbs, it means a little bit more than just meet or met. It means you meet by accident. It's unplanned. And the verb that means to meet someone unplanned by accident means to encounter, okay? Such as I encountered a strange dog in front of my house. It means you met that dog by accident. So again, expressions are commonly used in the IELTS exam, okay? Now, there is one other way to paraphrase that's really important to pay attention to. Anybody know what is the fifth way that we can paraphrase ideas and information? And the IELTS exam uses all of these, and I will show you a couple examples in a moment here, okay? So what's another way to paraphrase? So we have synonyms, we have antonym negatives, we have grammar, we have expressions. What is one more way that we paraphrase? What's another way? There's one more way that we can actually paraphrase. Amrit says data, visually, possibly in task 1 of writing. Amrit, you have visual paraphrasing with pictures, but I'm not thinking about that right now. It's something that's more common in all sections of the exam. How about I give you an example and then you can tell me what it is. It's red, round, sweet, and delicious. What is it? Logic for Dobbs is critical thinking that you use to comprehend possibly paraphrasing. Zaina, very good. Haven't seen your comment in a while, but you've nailed it. It's description. Yeah, and Hung says it's an apple. Yeah, I've already talked about it. So descriptive paraphrasing, absolutely. Okay. Descriptive paraphrasing is very popular on the IELTS exam. So again, you have to train your mind to think with descriptive paraphrasing. Okay? So again, remember, synonyms, antonyms, negatives, grammar, expressions, and description. Now I'm going to let you in on a big secret. Okay? How do IELTS exam makers create easy questions and then more difficult questions. By the way, it's the same way that your professors at university do. So the same technique is used by teachers and professors in school. Okay. So if I want to make an easy question for students, what should I do? Yeah, so Amrit says they probably go from type 1 to type 5 paraphrasing gradually while they're preparing the exam. Yeah, Amrit, in part you are correct. Okay, so if I want to make an easy question, I will keep the paraphrasing simple, like replacing one word with a synonym. Okay, and you will notice this. So when you're doing your practice exams at home now, so when you're doing Cambridge practice exams or when you're doing the practice exams on our website, you'll notice that in the listening section, section 1, or in the first reading passage, the first couple questions usually just use some simple form of paraphrasing, like a synonym or a slight grammar change. Okay? So something like the person in the audio says there is a large fence outside the hotel. And then in the questions, you'll see something like the fence outside the hotel is A, wide, B, short, or C, big. Okay? And then you have to choose the correct answer. So in the listening or in the reading, you'll see something like this in the passage or hear something like this in the audio. There's a large fence outside the hotel. And then in the questions, you'll have a multiple choice. And the multiple choice will say something like the fence outside the hotel is A, wide, B, short, or C, big. Okay? All right. Alvina, thanks for sharing the essay topic. Can you send that to me, Alvina, as well, please, in an email? I'll think about it a bit. Yeah, so obviously the answer is C. It's some simple paraphrasing between big and large. Now, when you want to increase the difficulty of the questions, you start to combine. The examiners will combine paraphrasing techniques to increase the difficulty of questions. Exam makers combine more and more strategies to paraphrase. Okay, so for example, antonym plus negative with grammar and with some description. Okay, so if I want to increase the difficulty, and you'll see this, so when you get to section 3, section 4 in the listening, or when you get to the more difficult sections in the reading, then you'll see these more complex forms of paraphrasing. So let's say the passage says something like, after the action potential in the axons of neurons reach 150 millivolts, there is a signal sent to the neighboring cells. Okay, so let's say you read something like that. Let's say it's about brain science, it's a lecture and listening, or it's a reading passage on communication amongst brain cells. So after the action potential in the axons of neurons reach 150 millivolts, there is a signal sent to the neighboring cells. And then you'll see something like adjacent neurons receive an input once the axons of their partner cells attain 150 millivolt charge. True, false, not given. Okay, so let's say it's a true, false, not given. So I'm just making this up right now, just to give you an example. But notice how different these two sentences appear, yet they are giving you the exact same. Okay? Wow, Alvina, that was a real coincidence. I had no idea what the reading was about. And I'm glad that you shared that with us, that the reading was about brain activity. This is absolutely about brain activity here. Alvina, I'm glad you shared that because it makes it clear for our viewers that this isn't some extremely high-level science that I took from my university studies, but this is information that you can see in the academic IELTS reading, and that's exactly what you seem to have experienced, Alvina. So here we go. After the action potential in the axons of neurons reach 150 millivolts, there's a signal sent to the neighboring cells. Adjacent neurons receive an input once the axons of their partner cells attain a 150 millivolt charge. So lots of word replacement using synonyms. I've switched the grammar around. True, false, not given. If this is what's written in the text, clearly that is true. Okay. Roshni, yeah, I can paraphrase quite fast. It's because I practice it. So I practice paraphrasing a lot. You'll actually notice that language teachers, of course English teachers, do a lot of paraphrasing. That's a big part of our job, is to paraphrase to help students learn and understand. Paraphrasing is a very powerful teaching and learning aid. So teachers have to be good at it. So yes, Roshni, you can definitely improve your speed with that. Okay. All right. So let's hop over to a reading passage. Now, I think some of you may have seen this one before. So this is seismic shifts, silent drift. So the question here is, how do I practice paraphrasing at home? So what should I do to practice paraphrasing at home for the IELTS exam? Okay. Well, one way to do it is simply grab sentences from a reading passage and paraphrase them. Okay. So here we go. Let's grab a sentence, and then we'll paraphrase it. Let's take this last one. So it would take over 300 years for the theory to be fully developed, and 50 years after that for the mechanism of the phenomenon to be discovered. Now, you should always type out the sentence or write it out on paper. So this is paraphrasing practice, okay? And you can do this with the reading section. You can do this with the listening section. You can do this with the speaking section questions. So all you do is you take the sentence. It would take over 300 years for the theory to be fully developed. and 50 years after that for the mechanism of the phenomenon to be discovered. Okay? So when you're doing this at home, if you're writing by hand, then you should maybe use a different color pencil or pen for your paraphrasing, and you can actually write between the lines. Members, can you paraphrase this sentence for me? So can you write this for me in another way? Okay, so this is paraphrasing exercises, all right? So write this sentence for me in another way. Sometimes it's good to try to simplify the sentence. Okay, so here's your challenge. This is a reading passage. It's a sentence in the reading passage. Write it out, and then write down the paraphrasing. If you don't know some words, use a thesaurus. So use a special kind of synonym dictionary to help you. Okay? So let's see how well you can paraphrase it. Again, try to keep it simple. Use your own words. The trick is to understand it and then write it down in your own words. Simplify. Remember, there's description that's going on here. There's some complex vocabulary that you can simplify. This is about continental shift, plate tectonics. Okay? I'm going to do the same, so I'll paraphrase while you paraphrase, and then we'll see how well we do, how we match up. Okay. So Amrit says, for the theory to fully come into existence, it would take over 30 decades and 5 decades after that for the working technique to be fully addressed. Amrit, I love it. It's great. So you went just as complex. You used a lot of synonyms. So Amrit, what you're doing is you're using a lot of synonyms. So what you want to focus on, Amrit, in the future is not just synonyms, but try to change the grammar. Try to change the sentence structure to make it your own. Especially that will help you to figure out more difficult IELTS questions. Okay? Kesey said it would take more than 350 years to fully develop the theory and phenomenon. Almost, Kesey. So not the phenomenon, but the mechanism. Right? The mechanism, the system for this. All right? Hung says the theory developed over 3 centuries and the system of the circumstance evolved over 5 decades. Hung, very good. That's a really nice paraphrase. Okay? So well done for that. All right, so there's some good paraphrasing there, and now I'll show you why that's so important. If we go down to the questions, here's the true, false, not given. So true, false, not given, question 1, it took over 350 years for the theory and mechanism of continental drift to be fully developed. Okay, yeah, so I'm familiar with these exams a little bit, but still, notice that I have a paraphrase which is very close to that. Kesey, I think, also had one very, very similar. So it took people over 350 years to fully understand the way that continental shift happens. Sure. So there we go. Now we know that it's true. We can say that, right? Once you practice paraphrasing, and this is why I'm emphasizing this so much, it's one of the most important tricks, tips, strategies, whatever you want to call it, to really improve your IELTS band score. So once you have solid intermediate English skills, then it comes down to lots of fast quality paraphrasing. Why is there a lack of paraphrasing among non-native English speakers? The same reason as there's a lack of paraphrasing among any people speaking a second language. Once we feel comfortable to explain ourselves in one way, clearly, in another language, we tend to just repeat that same method because we know it works, right? But to get into the band 7, which is very good, which is good, band 8, which is very good, band 9, which is expert, you have to go above and beyond just one way of expressing yourself. That's the trick. So that's what IELTS is measuring, especially with those more difficult questions. Okay? Ferdovs says the theory is enhanced in more than 3 centuries. Furthermore, it takes another 5 decades for it to be fully developed. Ferdovs, I did a little correction there, but otherwise very good. Alvina says it would pass more than 300 years for the theory to be completely improved, and 50 years for the instrument of this phenomenon to be recognized. Alvina, I would just say recognized instead of those last 4 words, but otherwise some really good paraphrasing. Instrument instead of mechanism, Alvina, is a really nice synonym. Okay. Roshni says, for the well-developed theory, it could take another 300 years and yet another 50 years for the mechanism to be completely developed. Yeah, Roshni, not bad. Roshni, I can definitely see that you need to focus on your paraphrasing. Make it natural, Roshni. So focus on paraphrasing in a natural way. Okay. All right, that's pretty good, students. So that is it with paraphrasing. Paraphrasing is the key to getting a high band score. It's the key to making the IELTS exam. Any questions about paraphrasing? So any questions about this tool or this phenomenon, we can call it, this communication device? Any questions about paraphrasing? Now's your chance. Again, make sure to focus at least 30 minutes to an hour of your studies for the IELTS exam specifically on paraphrasing, just like what I showed you. And you can do it another way too, where you can paraphrase questions and not the text, and then read or then listen. So you can switch it around. One day, paraphrase the text or the audio, and then the next day, paraphrase the questions, right? I'll write that down for you, just so you don't get bored of paraphrasing text, okay? So practicing paraphrasing at home. Every day, spend 30 minutes, at least 30 minutes to an hour on focused paraphrasing practice. It may seem difficult at the beginning. It may seem a little bit tiring, but believe me when I say it's well worth it, and you will absolutely see improvement if you keep it up for a few weeks. Okay? Hung says, practicing a lot, but may also have a lot of mistakes when paraphrasing. That's absolutely okay, Hung. It's absolutely okay to make mistakes in paraphrasing. Ideally, you get some feedback on your paraphrasing, so you show it to a teacher or you put it into some grammar software and get some feedback on the accuracy. make some corrections, make sure that the meaning is retained so you're not losing the meaning of what the original sentence is. But it's okay, Hung, to make mistakes. Those will decrease with time and practice. Roshni is saying, how can we reverse easy sentences by paraphrasing? I'm not sure what you mean by that, Roshni. Like, how can you paraphrase easy sentences? You'll have to give me an example, Roshni. I'm not too clear on what you're asking there, okay? Alvina is saying, should I use paraphrasing in speaking questions? Absolutely, Alvina. Yeah, definitely. That is a very good way to improve your band score. Yeah, the more you can paraphrase the questions, just make sure it's accurate, the better it will be. Absolutely. Examiners love to hear paraphrasing in the speaking interview. Definitely. Amrit says, okay, so can I pick up any reading passage in a day and would I be able to see improvement in a week? Yes, Amrit, definitely. If you practice paraphrasing every single day for a whole week, spend at least an hour a day, absolutely you will see improvement. Let me give you a really good analogy, students, of why. So Amrit, your question might be, really, how, can I really see improvement in 1 week? Yeah, definitely. Any of you ever go mushroom picking? So any of you ever go into a forest or into a field and pick some mushrooms to make soup or some kind of a food? Do any of you ever do that? Or have any of you ever done that? Alvina says, yes, I've done it. Okay. And Alvina, then you'll probably know that when you go mushroom picking in a forest or in a field, the first time that you do it, especially in the first hour or 2 hours, it's really difficult to see the mushrooms. They're well hidden, they're well camouflaged under leaves, besides logs and stumps. It's really difficult to see them. Yeah, only pick mushroom, students, if you know that they're not poisonous. But anyway, they're very, very difficult to find at the start. Now, when you do it for a couple of days, 1 or 2 hours each day, suddenly you start to see more and more and more mushrooms. They're not just suddenly popping out of the ground. They've been there the whole time. It's just that your eye and your brain is becoming trained to see differences and similarities in the grass and in the terrain, okay? Your brain uses the exact same process for paraphrasing. So at first, it seems really difficult. It seems like some words are impossible to paraphrase or some sentences. And then the more that you do it, it's kind of like a train that gets moving faster and faster, and suddenly it's moving very fast, and it's very hard to stop. The brain is the same. So once it gets used to this paraphrasing and starts to identify grammar structures and words, just like picking those mushrooms, you see them everywhere. You see those synonyms, antonym negatives, expressions. So absolutely, Amrit, keep doing it every day and you will notice the difference, okay? All right? And then just like Alvina says, when you're picking mushrooms and you get good at it, you start to become really happy. At the beginning, it's really frustrating. You think they're hiding from you. It's impossible to find them. But it's the same for paraphrasing. Once you do it for a while, then you start to get really happy and satisfied with the results. So keep that in mind, okay? So every day, spend 30 minutes to an hour focusing on paraphrasing practice. Paraphrase, so select sentences from listening transcripts and passages, write them down, and then paraphrase them using a different color. Next, you can reverse this process by paraphrasing the questions in listening and reading, and then reading and listening. Okay. So those are just a couple of different ways that you can directly practice your paraphrasing for the IELTS exam. It's one of the fastest, if not the fastest way to improve your band score. The reason I say different colors is because it's easy for your brain to recognize and distinguish. Humans see colors, so we should use colors to our advantage, okay? So here I can see the original, here I can see my paraphrase. So I highly, highly recommend using different colors, okay? All right. Students, I'm not going to get into critical thinking today in a deeper way, but that was definitely a little bit of a deeper exploration of paraphrasing and how that works in the IELTS exam. For some of you who have access to our premium course, you've probably seen much of what I said today in the first part of the interactive course. Reba, Amarjeet, don't worry about it. This class will be up on the channel in about an hour, so later today or tomorrow, you can go back and watch it, okay? And you'll catch the next one. All right, thank you so much, members, for your participation and your attention. In 30, 40 minutes, we will continue with speaking part 3 examples and practice. Hung, yes. Hung just asked a really good question. Hung said, can all sentences and words be paraphrased in another way? Yes, absolutely. Even very technical words and sentences, Hung, can be paraphrased in another way. In real life, we also paraphrase with body language. Bye for now. See you in 30 minutes.